good, Christy. How are you?
Good. Thank you for your time. I guess it's the evening time in your side, right?
Kind of. It's like about 6:15 over here, but that's okay. I work US and Asia hybrid hours, so I still have like another 4 hours to go. So
Oh,
yeah, you're
wow.
good.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. As mentioned, I'm going to prepare a few questions for you on this interview. But before that, I want you to actually introduce yourself and your company to everyone.
Okay. My name is Alexander Cozy. I'm with Bright Ideas Supply Chain Solutions, also known as Bright Ideas X Freight on the freight forwarding side of the business. And that's who I am, yes. And I'm one of the founders and the CEO of the company. So I oversee the organization and the different business units that we have. And I make sure, I guess, our culture is ongoing, and I work closely with the different business unit heads to make sure everything's running smooth and making sure clients are happy.
Yeah, sounds good, Alex. Do you want to say a little bit more about the business? I mean, it's a good opportunity for the audience to hear more, like something different that you guys have as a business itself. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So I guess compared to the traditional freight forwarders, our business model is quite different. We definitely do freight forwarding. Freight forwarding is a significant part of our business. We operate very much as a US based freight forwarder. Um, a big chunk of our business is imports from China, and then other imports from like Asia, and then domestic, freight going to final mile distribution, and then in some regards also exports to Europe. Um, but the process with us doesn't really start with necessarily always talking to customers about freight. The process with us actually begins at the product side of it. So the one thing that is very different from our business is I learned a long time ago when I was sitting in front of CEOs of clients that we had. Freight was like something that was on their mind, but it wasn't something that like kept them up at night. It was more on the product side of it. And I also learned through the hard way what happens if a customer's factory or supplier does something bad. It like has a trickle down effect to us. So we basically made a strategic move in 2016 to take control of that process. So we learned that if we are doing the manufacturing and the product development and the sourcing, we're more or less always going to get the freight. And if we are essentially the one that is controlling the manufacturing and the sourcing of the product, the customer would rather just give us the freight. And also on top of that, when we're talking down with a business or a business owner or the head of like operations, you know, in freight forwarding, the word supply chain is thrown around a lot, but the reality is like it's just really they're just doing the shipping or they're doing maybe the warehousing and the fulfillment. But supply chain is really it starts at like raw materials to like inventory and product. And so for us, it's a different conversation. It's not about like, oh, you do 300 containers, I can save you X on your containers. For us, it's more like, oh, how much are you spending on your supply chain? Are you spending 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, 5 million, 10 million? Okay, it's great. And then we essentially audit what they're doing. So we audit how they're buying product, how they're ordering raw material, how they're shipping it, how they're paying for the duties and taxes. And we basically go line by line and just start chopping it up. And then we do a before and after comparison where you are today and where you could be tomorrow when you work with
Wow.
us. And so typically what happens is clients will come to us to either find a product, develop a product, source a product, or lower the cost of a product, or they'll say, hey, this is my business. It makes this much money right now, and we spend this much money in our supply chain. And then we diagnose it and we say, okay, you're spending this much today. Tomorrow you'll spend 20% less.
Okay.
And that's
Wow.
a combination of shipping and product and everything else. And then we don't really charge anything up front. We say, well, give us your shipping first and we'll make sure it's less than what you're paying now. We'll give you that guarantee. And in the meantime, we'll start chopping away at your supply chain costs. And at the end of 90 days, you'll come away richer. Or if you want to sell your company, you'll come away a lot richer. And then usually what happens is if they sell their company, we get absorbed into that company that buys them. And then we start working with all their other divisions as well. And so we do the sourcing and the product development in China primarily. And then we also are sourcing products out of Mexico, but it's a very different animal. But as a freight forwarder, we are really a US-based freight forwarder. And even though, we are US-based freight forwarder and we are our own freight forwarder and we service our own, you could say, like product development, sourcing, manufacturing, the market has evolved to a point, sorry, I'm gonna just move that, where we now are very objective. So if for some reason we are not competitive, we are not going to like live or die by our own like division. We will work with other partners and freight forwarders in order to solve whatever the problem is, because at the end of the day, the problem that we're solving is more than just shipping. It's at the highest level of the supply chain. It's like, if you look at a supply chain cost, like I'll give you an example. If someone is spending $5 million on product, they're probably spending, they used to spend about $500,000 in shipping. Now they're probably spending like, maybe 1 million or something, let's just say, right? Or maybe not 1 million, but they're spending a lot more. And so, we're attacking the really big number, and as a result of that, it's actually grown our shipping business even more. So when I was just doing the shipping side of it, in shipping, it's very sales intensive. You have to do a lot of like cold calling. You have to have like a lot of salespeople. So it's in the US, it's quite different. We're not very agent driven for business. Some people are, but we never were, right? So we would get our business through to basically cold calling and selling. And you go talk to like the purchasing manager if you're trying to do imports, or if you're trying to do exports, you're talking to the shipping department. And quite frankly, I found that life sucks. Like, you're just like constantly like, hi, please give me shipping, give me your freight, give me your freight, give me your freight. And that's fine. But once we started to get into the more kind of the bigger picture kind of role, very quickly there's no more selling involved. So essentially, the word gets out, and people come to us because they know we can basically take off millions and millions of dollars, or we can create millions of dollars for them through a product. And so ultimately, it's become like a very different business. And then we ship it, and so it's almost like we are our own customer in a sense. But obviously, we have dozens and hundreds of customers that also give us shipping from our previous non-sourcing related stuff. So we still have all legacy customers, and we still work with them, and we still love them and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, yeah, the business is really about tackling it at the supply chain level. And I don't know many companies that do it. I think there's a company called OIA Global that does it in Portland, Oregon. And the most famous one that did it, but they were very focused on fashion, was Li & Fung. So Li & Fung was a very famous company in Hong Kong. And I used to know them because Li Ka-shing would always be in the newspaper. And so would Richard Lee, his son, because he used to own PCCW. And that's how I knew about them. And they got recently bought by Maersk. So, congratulations to them. And then, so anyways, so that's basically our business. And yeah.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks for being so transparent. I mean, really, we can hear this, very special perspective that, I don't really hear that from anyone else. So I really appreciate with you sharing today. So, okay, let's